So hey guys, this is your favorite the fictional vortex. So in this video, we will see, what if Naruto was the no-life king vampire? But before we start, remember to subscribe and like this video. Now let's start. Night was beginning to fall in Konohagakure, village hidden in the leaves, on October 10th. A large crowd was gathering, holding torches and pitchforks. Some of the ninja in the mob holding kunai or katana. These men were ready to go on a hunt, but not for a criminal, unless you ask them. No, they were on a hunt to get rid of they believed to be the Kyuubi no Kitsune in human flesh. Or as he is supposed to be known, 8-year-old Naruto Uzumaki. Yes, these men were going to hunt down a young boy, and if they could, see him die a painful death. Now you ask, why must a child suffer so? It all started 8 years ago on this same day, when a fearsome beast known as the Kyuubi no Kitsune attacked the village. That is what most know. But what many do not know, is that the beast was forced into attacking the village by a single man, known as Madara Uchiha. The disgruntled ex-clan head resented the village ever since his rival Hashirama Senju was named Hokage. He tried to rally his clan to revolt, but sadly no one followed his insane ideals. He fought to destroy his rival, the battle creating a great chasm known only as the Valley of the End. Madara tried to use Kyuubi against Hashirama, but sadly that also failed. After the confrontation, Madara disappeared, and did not appear again until Naruto's birth, in order to steal the Kyuubi from the current Jinchuriki, Kushina Uzumaki, Naruto's mother. While the events that followed are murky, the result was obvious: the Kyuubi was unleashed on the village, and both Naruto's mother and father perished. One because of her Biju being ripped out, the other sealing the beast into their son. But enough of history, let's focus on the present. It seems the mob has caught up to him near the gate to the village. They managed to surround him, and began to beat him, using kunai, glass, whatever they could find. Naruto mentally pleaded that someone would help him, in a moment's chance. He slipped away from the mob, the bleeding heavy and extensive. He ran to what seemed like an abandoned mansion hidden in the forest. The gates swung open, and he quickly ran for safety, but sadly, a few of the mob managed to get in before the gates closed. One of the members of the mob noticed the mansion, and said, "So the demon ran into the Namikaze estates, did he? That little bastard will die for sure." A few of the mob held sinister smirks, but a voice behind them chilled their blood. "What do you fools think you're doing?" Inside the manor, Naruto ran down the hallways. The mob members close on his trail. He managed to make it into the basement, but all but one door was locked, so he quickly hid in the room, and sat next to two people that were in the room, his blood trailing on the floor. But when he took a closer look, he saw that they were both female, and each had a cylinder-type object next to them. But the most frightening thing of all was, both of them were dead. He backed up away from them, fear evident on his face. He thought, "Oh God, who would leave them down here like this? What are they?" The door to the room was kicked open, and one of the mob members saw him and said, "We found you, demon, now you'll die." As one of the mob members reached out to grab the boy, they heard something move, and they turned their heads slowly to the two corpses that were in the room. Only, they had started to move, and they were licking up the blood that was on the floor from where Naruto was sitting. They slowly picked up the weapons that were beside them. The first had pale skin from lack of sun, her hair down to shoulder length, it being stark white. She wore what looked like a police uniform, and her eyes glowed a dark red. The other had much longer hair, though it was white all the same, flowing down to her knees. Her skin was more grayish, slightly freckled, and had glasses over her red eyes, but wore a military suit. It was black, with a green tie, brown shoes, and white gloves were on her hands. In a dark voice, the first one said, "Who dares attack our master?" One of the mob members, confident, or ignorant, said, "So you're this demon's whores. Quite a sick little fuck." He tried picking Naruto up by the scruff of his shirt, except, his hand was gone, seemingly sliced off at the elbow. The rest of the mob heard, looking for this. They turned to the first woman, and saw the man's arm in her hand, the blood flowing like a wine bottle, and in a manner that would make her old master proud, she raised the arm over her head, and began to drink the blood, her tongue hanging out as she lapped it up. The second woman spoke up, saying, "My, are you going to hog it all?" The first woman said, "Don't bother, it's disgusting. They seem like such a nuisance. Let's get rid of them." One of the mob members tried to plead, and said, "Wait, please." The first woman grabbed Naruto, and held him near her bosom, while the second pointed her gun straight at the mob. And in a voice that promised pain, said, "Thinker, fighter, soldier, sailor, my bullet punishes all, without distinction." She pulled the trigger once, and what aimed like a ball of light teared through them, acting as if it had a life of its own. It curved, moved, acted as if it were controlled, until finally, the mob was nothing more than chunks of flesh on the ground. The two women's eyes turned from red to blue, then looked down on the boy in the first one's arms, and the second woman said, "Well, what should we do now, Ceres? His wounds have healed over. But he seems to have fainted from all the blood he lost." The woman, known as Ceres, said, "I agree, Rip, let's take him to one of the upper rooms and get him cleaned up. He's a mess." Rip nodded, and as they made their way to the rooms, Rip noticed a large group outside, and said, "We have company, and they don't seem very friendly." Ceres looked outside, and saw she was right, and she said, "You take care of the boy. I'll take care of them." Rip was shivering, as she found the master bedroom, and quickly undressed herself, knowing she had to get another suit, as blood is hard to remove. She took Naruto into the bathroom to get him cleaned up, washing his hair, checking his wounds, and found some sleepwear for him to use, and once that was done, placed the boy in bed, donned a fresh suit, sat in a chair and opened a book on the nightstand to pass the time, humming her favorite opera, Der Freischütz, to pass the time. Outside the manor, Ceres carried the cannon Walter created, it imposingly held on her back. Her eyes turned red, and she said, "What do you fools think you're doing?" The rest of the mob looked at her. Pne of the fools said, "Where is the demon bitch? Or do we have to kill you too?" Ceres's scowl grew larger, and she said, "You have two choices, leave, or die." The mob started to laugh, and Ceres held her cannon like a handgun, and pulled the trigger. The shell sprang out from the barrel, and when it impacted the mob, they died in an explosion and a shower of gore. Feeling satisfied with herself, she started to walk back toward the manor, when a voice called out, "Wait right there." She turned back to see what looked like to her, an old man in robes, and a few of what looked like men and women in masks. Though two stuck out, a woman with dark hair and a raven mask, and one with purple hair and a snake mask. Ceres then said, "Why are you here? Are you after my master as well?" Sarutobi raised an eyebrow at the word master, but said, "Please, give Naruto back to us. My Anbu here saw him chased in this direction, and he went into that mansion." Ceres then said, "Why? So you can throw him back to the wolves this village is filled with. I know everything that's happened to him, so excuse me if I won't let him go back to that too." And with that, she started to walk away, but the raven-masked woman ran to the gate, and said, "Wait, just tell us he's okay, is he?" Ceres looked back, and saw the woman's coal-black eyes stare back, and thought, "She holds concern for master, and so does that snake-masked one." She continued to walk away, but said, "He's okay. But he'll be staying here." Sarutobi glared at the woman's back, but when she turned her head, he shivered in fear, those red eyes, ones that instilled more fear than even Kyuubi. Ceres calmly walked back into the manor, and Sarutobi thought, "I'm too old for this shit." Naruto's mindscape. Naruto woke up, only to find himself in what looked like a rotten sewer. As he made his way through the water, he heard dark, haunting laughter. He saw a bright light ahead of him, and as he passed through the doorway, he saw a massive cage, the bars making it so even he could not slip through, and for a lock. All he saw was a paper tag with the kanji for seal. He looked into the cage, and a giant red eye stared back at him. Startled, Naruto fell back on his ass, and backpedaled a bit. He stammered out, Who are you?" The outline of a giant fox face appeared in the cage, and he heard, "My, they didn't tell you now, did they? Strange, you'd think they would tell you something so important as the fact that you are my jailer." Naruto had a confused look on his face, and he said, "Wait, you can't be the Kyuubi, the fourth killed you, didn't he?" Kyuubi shook its head, and said, "We Biju cannot be killed, only sealed. I have seen your memories, boy, as did those two women, and I must say, I am disgusted with this village." Naruto was still shivering in fear, so the fox thought of a different solution. The outline began to shift and shrink, until it went from the outline of a fox, to a woman. Naruto opened his eyes, and said, "Really? What is it?" Kyuubi sighed, and said, It has to deal with your family. Naruto froze. This was the very subject he tried to ask Sarutobi for years, but he always avoided it for some reason. Kyuubi continued, it may be hard for you to believe, but your father. I barely got a chance to see him, but your mother, I know who she is, seeing as I was sealed in her before you. She was interrupted, as the dark laughter returned, and the walls of the sewer were covered in eyes. Kyuubi quivered in fear, as she said, he's coming. Naruto asked, who's coming? Kyuubi merely pointed to where Naruto came in and said, the hunter, the immortal. And your ancestor. He went by many names, but he only had one that mattered. A dark figure stepped into the light. It wore a gray suit, a strange red tie, a long red duster, and a red fedora hat. His eyes were hidden under orange-tinted sunglasses. His dark hair visible under the hat. Kyuubi shivered, and said, it's him, Alucard. Alucard walked closer, and said, his voice won for the grave. You must be my descendant, so young, and yet you know so much hatred. What will you do, if you were to gain power? Naruto, still shaken in fear, said, I would prove those fools wrong, I would. Crush them to the ground for their sins. Alucard started to laugh, his laughter as cold and cruel as the grave he crawled out of, and he said, excellent, excellent, soon, you will grow stronger, but until then. I shall take my leave. Alucard disappeared. Kyuubi released a breath she did not know she held, and saw that Naruto started to vanish. She quickly said, if you need to talk to me, just think it, I'll hear it. Naruto nodded, and he vanished to the waking world. Namikaze Master Bedroom. Naruto slowly opened his eyes, his body feeling different. He looked to his left, and saw a long-haired girl reading a book, humming something he couldn't understand. He groaned as he sat up, and the girl put her book down, and with a strange accent, said, oh thank goodness you're awake, master. We were starting to worry about you. Naruto blushed at the girl, and said, master. Me. The girl nodded, and said, yes, my name is Rip Van Winkle, former first lieutenant of the Millennium Battalion. After my defeat at the hands of Master Alucard, I was made retainer of the Hellsing family after his death. You see, I, along with my fellow retainer, were sealed in that chamber until we were needed. You could say you were like a prince coming to wake up two princesses. Naruto blushed, and though he wouldn't admit it, the girl before looked good, she seemed in her 20s, her eyes told she had seen much carnage, most of it made by herself. Naruto then asked, there were two of you, so, where's the other one? Rip opened her mouth to speak, but a voice from the open door said, I'm right here. Seems the men that followed you in here had some friends, which I gladly got rid of. She had a evil smirk, which oddly reminded Naruto of Alucard, and he felt like showing one of his own, and he said, did they suffer for long? Sarah shook her head, and said, no, I blasted them straight to hell. Naruto chuckled, and said, good, it's about time those bastards tasted the very same fear they tried to drive into me all these years. Alucard was laughing in Naruto's mindscape. For you see he did not leave, he just went to a different part of his mind, and started tinkering with his personality. Making him darker, more sadistic, but still left traces of his old personality behind. Alucard then thought, I hope you enjoy feeling free, because soon, my heir, you will strike fear into their hearts. Just as they tried to do so onto you. Sarah's then did a bit of a bow, and said, my name is Sarah's Victoria, retainer of the Hellsing family, as I can see you met Rip already. Naruto nodded, and as a surprise to both women, his eyes turned red, his fangs grew, and his skin grew pale. Sarah's watched, and she said, he's been turned, but how? Did you bite him, Rip? Rip shook her head, and said, it wasn't me, wait, this feeling, it belonged to one person, Master Alucard. They both looked at the boy, who managed to pass out due to the ordeal, and they both thought, the Hellsing family will rise again. Single quote. The next day, Naruto woke up, his head feeling groggy, but his body felt stronger, but incomplete for some reason. Rip chose that moment to walk out of the shower in a bathrobe. And Naruto covered his eyes. She giggled at his reaction and said, Guten Morgen, good morning, master, why are you under the covers like that? Naruto's blush grew, and he said, because a gentleman doesn't look at a lady when she's indecent. Rip giggled at his attitude, and sat next to him on the bed, and said, that is true, but what if the girl wants you to see, is that better? Naruto's blush grew, and luckily Sarah's walked into the room, and said, "Quit teasing him like that." Naruto had a sigh of relief, thinking, she must be the level-headed one. He then heard, "We need to wait till he hits puberty for that." He hung his head, and thought, damn it, wrong again. He felt himself pulled into Rip's lap and she said, "We have much to talk about today. A woman a raven mask dropped off a scroll for you this morning. She said it was for your eyes only, master." Naruto raised an eyebrow, and Sarah's handed him the scroll, and it read, "To my son, Naruto. By the time you read this, I'm sure you either became Chunin, turned 16, or Sarutobi thought you were ready. As I write this final letter, Kyuubi attacks our village, so I do not have long. A clone is dealing with certain matters in town, allowing me to write this. If you can't tell by looks alone, my name is Minato Namikaze, or as this village knows me as, the Yondaime Hokage. It was my hope that this village may see you as a hero. But as your mother Kushina has told me, it's just a dream. I have done some digging into my family tree, and saw that it goes back to before the ninja era, to before the world was remade. Our family was once known as Hellsing. They were the ones that took down creatures known as vampires. As strange as it may sound, they did. Their leader was a woman by the name of Integra Fairbrook Winget's Hellsing. To put it bluntly, she was our family's version of Tsunade, thankfully without the inhuman strength. She was fierce, respected, and knew just exactly how to get the job done. From what I was able to find out, she and oddly enough, a vampire named Alucard grew closer than many suspected. Because of this, Alucard's blood flows in our family's veins. The toughest of Hellsing's leaders, and the strongest vampire, you'll certainly have a lot to live up to. The old Hellsing manor was gone, but I built the clan estate over the old foundation. Make me proud, son, and don't ever let those fools walk all over you. Minato Namikaze Hellsing, Yondaime Hokage." Naruto had his fists clenched, his eyes watery, and tears threatened to fall. He looked to Sarah's and asked, "What was Integra like as a person?" Sarah smiled, and said, "She was the strongest woman I ever met. She stared death in the eye many a time, and only walked away smiling. I respected, and even envied her. I was still getting used to be a vampire at the time, but she along with Master Alucard toughened me up." Naruto then looked at Rip, and asked, "So, what's your story? You mentioned being in an army." Naruto saw Sarah's glaring at Rip, and Rip nervously said, "Well, you see, I once was part of a German army that fought against Hellsing, and the world entirely, it was under the control of a man by the name of Adolf Hitler, who had dreams of ruling the world. I was a loyal soldier, fighting for her country, until I was turned into a vampire. That was when I was put into the Millennium Battalion, and it wasn't until I received a mission to overtake a ship, that I finally died. Master Alucard crushed me and the forces I had with me. It was a bloodbath, and then, I died, and I slept till I was released from the slumber some time later, and was a retainer for the family ever since." She looked down, thinking that Naruto would hate her, but was surprised to feel him lift her chin, and say, "Sounds to me like you were following orders, like a good soldier. War is a messy business, and death is everywhere, and swallows everyone. If Alucard trusted you enough to protect this family after he was gone, then so can I." Rip and Sarah saw his eyes, and saw wisdom beyond his years, but what they didn't know, was that Kyuubi fixed his mental capacity, allowing to think clearer, and show wisdom. Rip gave Naruto a hug, unknowingly pressing his against her, and while Sarah's tried to break her hold of him, Naruto passed out, and thought, "I love my life." A few days later, Sarutobi was not a happy man. The boy he considered a grandson was inside the very mansion he heard so many tales about. While it may be the Namikaze estate now, before it was the Hellsing Manor, with all sorts of occult and dark secrets inside its walls. He hoped that Naruto would be taken from there soon, or who knows what may happen to him. He called for one of his Anbu, who wore a raven mask, and said, "Karasu, Raven. I need you to go to that mansion, and try to talk to Naruto-kun, see if you can't get him out of there. ASAP, he can't stay in there." The masked woman thought, "Yeah right, you just don't want him near what's rightfully his. I may not know what game you're playing, Sarutobi, but I don't like it." She quickly bowed and left, a scowl hidden behind her mask. Sarutobi hung his head and thought, he can't be allowed to know his family name. If he did, he'd turn on the village, and I can't have that. Namikaze Manor. Karasu stood outside the gate, and wondered how she would get inside. As if by command, the gates swung open in a welcoming manner. Deciding to go forward, she went up to the front door, and knocked. She heard someone approach, and saw the blonde-haired woman from before open the door. Instead of the blue-haired girl she gave the scroll to. She asked, "Is Naruto-kun up yet? I need to talk to him." Rip was surprised by the sincerity of her voice, but said, "He is, he just got up. He's also read the scroll you left here, and he's not too pleased with that old man. Please, come in." Sarah's led her into the kitchen, where Rip was preparing breakfast, having had learning to cook from her time in Millennium. Naruto noticed come in, rush over to give her a hug, and said, "Itachi-chan." The now revealed Itachi removed her mask, showing a face that oddly resembled her mother's. Yet had odd lines coming from the top of her nose, and spread outward. "You know what ones I mean." Naruto hugged her and said, "I'm glad to see you, Itachi-chan." Itachi giggled and said, "So am I, Naruto-kun. Did you read the scroll I left for you?" Naruto nodded, and Rip asked, not to prod, but, "How did you have it to begin with? Surely an important document like that had to be held under lock and key, right?" Itachi nodded, and said, "It was given to me by Naruto-kun's mother, as she and my mother were close friends, sisters even. She gave me the scroll, asking me, if anything should happen to his father, or me, that I would promise give it to him, so he doesn't go on without knowing his family. She also asked me to take care of him, something I'm sad to say I haven't done much of, no thanks to Sarutobi." Naruto hugged her tighter, inciting a blush from the 13-year-old. Rip and Sarah's both thought, knew it, she likes him. Naruto looked her in the eyes, and said, "It's okay, Itachi-chan. That old fool is getting on in years, even I can tell that." He then hugged her waist, her blush growing. Sarah's chuckled and said, "My, it seems the young master is quite the ladies' man. And he's into older women, huh?" Rip giggled, as she thought, it's good to be awake for this. Both had the decency to blush, which caused the girls to giggle more. Rip then said, "I think it's cute how close you two are. Who knows, we may hear wedding bells in the future." Even Kyuubi blushed at this point, as both of them had those very images flowing in their heads, and Kyuubi pa sing out with a nosebleed as she saw an older Naruto. Itachi then said, "Naruto-kun, I have to warn you of something important that's about to happen. It seems my father wants to try and capture you, using you as my clan's pet fox." Naruto raised an eyebrow, and said, "Is that so?" Itachi nodded, her head hung, as she said, "He'll rally the clan members that hate you, and storm this place to get to you. I heard him arguing last night with someone, but I have no idea who." Naruto hugged her tight, and said, "Thank you for telling me, now we can prepare for this." "When will they arrive?" Itachi sighed, and said, "Tonight. They hoped to attack this place while you slept." Rip and Sarah's grinned, and Sarah said, "That's not going to happen, after all. Any who invaded these grounds never made it out of here alive. A tradition we will uphold." Itachi had a shiver of fear crawl up her spine, as she saw the trio's eyes turn a blood red, and she thought, what have I wrought? Later that night, a mob of Uchiha gathered outside the village, Fugaku Uchiha at the helm. Then he looked at the group, and said, "Men, a plague in our village has existed long enough. That demon brat dared to enter the home of our Yondaime, and has desecrated it with his presence. We shall drag him out of there, and make him into a weapon only we will control. Are you with me?" The crowd cheered, all with the intent of making the demon boy bow to them. They were dead wrong. The mob charged the gate, only for it to swing open as if on command. To their horror, Sarah's and Rip were waiting for them, their guns prepped, their fingers holding the trigger. Naruto walked out of the front door, an outfit similar to Alucard's, and said, well, what do we have here? Has the clan of thieves come to rob others of more of their secrets?" Fugaku sneered, and said, "You won't be so arrogant soon, you little shit. For once in your life you'll be useful, and maybe those women of yours will be too." The mob snickered, but froze as a powerful killer intent washed over them, produced by the vampiric trio in front of them. Naruto's scowl had them shivering, and he said, "I'm not the arrogant piece of shit here, Uchiha, it's you. I knew you were coming, and you know what? You won't leave here alive, ladies." Rip and Sarah's opened fire on the mob. Rip's musket and a machine gun Sarah's dragged out of the old arsenal sent bullets flying into the mob, tearing them apart. Soon, only Fugaku was left, his knees and elbows shot, making him unable to move. Itachi walked out of the mansion, and Fugaku shouted, "You traitorous bitch. You told him we were coming. I knew I should have had a son. Instead of a bitch like you. Sasuke will kill you, all of you, he'll avenge me." Itachi just looked at him, drawing her sword, and said, "I'm not a traitor, you are. With this act of treason, you are hereby sentenced to death. Go to hell, you bastard." She then proceeded to chop off his head, the blood spraying about. Itachi fell to her knees, tears falling. Naruto hugged her from behind, trying his best to soothe her. This was the scene Sarutobi arrived at, shock and horror written all over his face. He then said, "What happened here?" Rip scowled at the old man, and said, "Those bastards from the Uchiha clan charged over here, hoping to capture Master to use him as a weapon. As you can clearly see, we didn't like that." Sarutobi was appalled, and he said, "Give him back, he doesn't belong here." Sarah held Naruto and, to her embarrassment, Itachi close, saying, "No, he's right where he belongs, with people that give a damn about him. Seeing as you clearly don't." Sarutobi sputtered, disgusted, and he said, "Shut up, vampire, I would never allow Naruto to stay in the hands of demons like you." He would have said more. But a powerful killer intent flooded the area, with Naruto himself as the source. Each step he took the intent grew heavier, till even Sarutobi fell to his knees, the silhouette of a giant dog behind Naruto. Looking at Sarutobi like he's the next meal. Naruto grabbed him by the scruff of his neck, and in a display of strength, lifted him up a bit, and said, "Don't you ever call them demons. They have treated me better than any human in this village, all but a select few, and you are not on that list. I do not see them as demons, but angels, who will stand by my side, and I will to them. Now you go tell that bastard's wife that he tried to attack me, and do not come back here. I will return to the village to finish the academy, but that is it. Anyone who even thinks of coming here with ill intent will be killed. Do I make myself clear?" Sarutobi nodded furiously, and with a show of strength, Naruto tossed him outside the gate, which snapped shut. Rip's musket was aimed straight at him, and he slowly walked away, the Anbu beside him shaking in fear. Naruto walked into the mansion, the girls following him, and the front door snapped shut. Namikaze Manor vestibule. Once inside, Itachi hugged Naruto, holding him tightly, and said, "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry." Naruto returned the hug, and said, "It's okay, you have nothing to apologize for, they were just fools for what they did. And they paid the price." Rip and Sarah joined in the hug, causing Itachi to blush furiously. She then thought, "I made the right choice." Time skip day of the Genin exams. It had been 7 years since the Uchiha attacked the manor. Rip, Sarah, Itachi, and Naruto have grown closer, stronger, the two vampires treating the younger girl like a sister. Rip asked about Itachi's name, and she replied, "My father wanted a son at the time I was conceived. He hid my gender, but my mother told me the truth." The elders of the Uchiha clan demanded that Naruto be killed for his actions, but Makoto, the new matriarch of the clan, put her foot down, saying that he was acting in self-defense, and punished any that tried to speak otherwise. Her son Sasuke was furious, and every day in the academy, he would try to pick fights. Or as he got older, tried to attack him with fire jutsu he learned from clan scrolls. Only to his horror, Naruto would get back up, brush his coat off, and walk away. Yutobi tried various methods to get Naruto away from the manor, but none ever worked. He even tried to get Itachi out of there, because of duty to the village. Itachi refused, and said, "I'm staying with Naruto-kun, and that's that." Sarutobi tried to get her to leave by using her mother, but Makoto said, "She's an adult in this village, and if she wants to stay with him, then I won't stop them. Just so long as I don't become a grandmother too early, that is." Naruto had grown in the last 7 years. He trained under Rip and Sarah to use guns, using handguns that Alucard left behind in the mansion's arsenal. But his vampiric power also grew over time as well. He, like Alucard before him, had no weaknesses that a traditional vampire would, thanks in part to Kyuubi's influence boosting the power of Alucard's blood in his system. Itachi helped with his shinobi training, teaching him the various fire jutsu she knew, and the most useful that she knew was the shadow clone. The 4, if you count Kyuubi, girls that lived in the manor knew of Naruto's heritage, and that he was the last of 2 clans. And the fringe benefits that came with it. Naruto woke up with weights on his arms and chest, and looking down. He saw Rip hugging his left arm, the appendage squeezed into her chest. Sarah's held his right arm, the arm in her bosom as well, while Itachi laid on his chest. He tried to suppress a moan as the girls pressed themselves closer, Sarah's and Rip pressing his hand near their waists, while Itachi was more or less grinding herself on him. The nightgowns that they wore hid absolutely nothing, and his eyes lingered as he scanned their bodies. He heard them all say, "Oh yes, Naruto-kun, I want more, much more." His face turned cherry red, and he quickly cleared his throat, waking the three up. They each had a blush on their faces, and Rip said, "Why did you have to wake us up, master? I was having such a lovely dream." Naruto grinned, and said, "Did it involve you having your way with little old me?" Their blush grew, but not at all the same. He cupped her face, and said, "Don't worry, once I graduate today, we'll celebrate tonight, in any way you girls want." They nearly fainted, but before they noticed, a Naruto held them from behind, Itachi holding onto the original, Rip and Sarah's kissing the clones that held them. As they parted for air, Sarah said, "Itachi-chan, taking him the shadow clone was the best thing you ever did." Itachi blushed, but she said, "I know, and once he's an adult in this village." She let it hang, filling the others' heads with perverted ideas. Rip grinned, and she said, "Oh, I'm sure of it, let's just hope he comes back soon afterwards, so we can celebrate." As the 7 years passed, the 5, Kyuubi included, agreed to celebrate his passing the academy the one way that would make it all the more satisfying. Naruto had his clones disperse, and he held them close, saying, "Living here with you three has been the greatest 7 years of my life. You're the angels that saved me from a hell on earth, and for that, I can never thank you enough." The girls held tears in their eyes, as he said, "And in these past 7 years, I realized something. And that is that I love each of you, fully and completely. I know I may need more than one wife." So, he was cut off, as each of the girls furiously kissed him, each taking turns, the tears flowing from their eyes. And they thought, he really does. Naruto heard Kyuubi in his head, and she said, "You mean that for me too, right, Naruto-kun?" Naruto smiled, and thought, "Of course, Q-chan. You've been by my side since I was born. You healed me when I was wounded, comforted me when I was upset." Hearing her sigh in content, he focused on the girls in front of him, and he said, "As much as I want to stay here, with 3 sexy ladies on top of me, I do need to get to the academy in order to pass." The girls blushed, and quickly rushed to get dressed. Naruto chuckled as he got up, and went to the bathroom to prepare for the day. Having performing the daily rituals, he went downstairs, and saw Rip wearing an apron, and barely anything underneath. She turned to him and said, "Relax a moment, master. Breakfast will be done shortly." Naruto found out 6 years ago that while as a vampire, he could drink blood to live, he didn't really need it. He could enjoy regular food just like anyone else. Something Sarah's was envious of, as she remembered having to give up food, it was a lot to adjust to. Rip got into the habit of doing the cooking ever since. And as he got older, she also got into the habit of wearing less, and up to now, when she wears very little while doing so. She placed the plate of food down on the table, and turned back to clean up the stove. He then heard her say, "Unless you would want to enjoy something else in the meantime." He walked up behind her, and wrapped his arms around her waist, his hands going under her apron, and said, whispering into her ear, "Oh. And I'm guessing it would be you I get to enjoy, am I right?" Her face turned beet red, and she said, "Yes, master, you could enjoy a taste of your servant, any time you want, all you need to do is ask." She felt his hands reach a little lower, and he said, "Oh, I will, in due time, my love, but first, I need to take care of the exams, and then, we can celebrate." She felt him disappear, and when she turned around, he was already out the door, the plate of food bare, and she thought, "Soon, master. Soon." She calmly walked back to her room, her panties needing to be changed. Sarah's and Itachi went back to their rooms as well, feeling the need to change their underwear as well. Konoha Ninja Academy. Naruto walked into the room he was assigned to, and looked around at the few genin hopefuls that had any strength. His attire was similar to Alucard's, but it was black wear red, and red wear gray. First, was a boy sleeping in the back of the room. He wore a brown horse-sleeved vest over a fishnet undershirt, dark brown pants, and blue shinobi sandals. His brown hair was pulled back, resembling a pineapple. His name was Shikamaru Nara, heir to the Nara clan, Konoha's shadow users. Sitting next to him, eating what looked like his fourth bag of chips this half hour, was a chubby kid, wearing a green jacket, a gray shirt with the kanji for eat on the front, blue pants, and blue sandals. His name was Choji Akamichi, heir to the Akamichi clan, Konoha's giants. Sitting near the back of the room was a rather stoic boy, his hair similar to an afro. Looks that way to me. He wore a large jacket, which covered most of his body. It blocked his mouth from view, and the sleeves came down to his hand, his round sunglasses hiding his eyes. He wore brown pants, and had the standard blue sandals. His name was Shino Aburame, heir to the Aburame clan, wielders of the insect contract. Sitting in another part of the room was a loud boy, who seemed to be talking to his pet dog. He wore a brown jacket, with fur on the hood of it. He wore brown pants, along with the standard sandals. His name was Kiba Inuzuka, heir to the Inuzuka clan, a clan famous for their feral nature, as well as their partnership with Ninken ninja dogs. His partner was Akamaru, a dog-wolf mixed breed. Sitting in the far corner of the room was a raven-haired boy, his face seemingly in a perpetual scowl, as if it were set in stone. He wore a baggy blue shirt with a high collar, gray arm warmers with blue bands at the ends of them. He wore white shorts that came to his knees, white tape wrapped around his ankles, and blue ninja sandals. The sign of his clan, a white and red fan, an Uchiha, was on the back of his shirt. His name was Sasuke Uchiha. Not far behind him sat two girls, one with blonde hair, and the other had pink hair. The blonde wore a rather revealing outfit, as she wore a purple skirt that came down to her knees, and a purple sleeveless top, with sarashi covering what the outfit didn't. Her name was Ino Yamanaka, of the Yamanaka clan, Konoha's mind walkers. The girl with pink hair wore a red battle dress, with black biker shorts underneath. Her hair fell past her shoulders, with a red ribbon holding her hair up. She was Sakura Haruno, the only one who wasn't from an actual clan. On near the other side of the room was Hinata Hyuga, her hair a deep blue. Her eyes were a light violet, making those who did not know her clan think she might have been blind. She wore a large overcoat to hide her body, as while she is 15, her body would have you believe she was older. She wore dark blue pants, and her jacket was a light gray at the top, and blue on the bottom. Her clan symbol, a flame, was on her back. She looked back and saw that Naruto walked in. She got up and hugged Naruto, saying, "Good morning Naruto-kun, are you ready to pass today's test?" Naruto smirked, which caused her to blush, and he said, "Of course, I trained for years. There's no way in hell I'm gonna fail this." He saw the white-haired instructor, Mizuki, glaring at him behind Iruka's back, then thought, I would just love to see Mizuki try something. Naruto patted the gun in his holster, as if about to quick draw it. Mizuki quit the glare, and Iruka said, "Alright class, today is the Genin exam, where we find out if you're able to become a Genin. First we'll have a paper test, followed by a taijutsu test, and finally the jutsu portion. The jutsu for the exam is the Bushin clone." Naruto smirked in satisfaction, as he was praising his luck that Itachi taught him. This will be a snap. An hour later, after the paper test, which Naruto answered in 10 minutes, and onto the taijutsu test, where Sakura foolishly challenged him, despite everyone's protest. As soon as the match started, it was over, as Naruto swept her feet from under her, punched her square in the stomach, and held her by the scruff of her neck. He scoffed, and said, "Pathetic." He then threw her out of the ring, where she landed on the ground, her ass in the air, and her face eating dirt. Stunned silence filled the courtyard, even by the Anbu watching in the trees. One purple-haired Jonin watching was thinking, "Naruto-kun, you've gotten so strong, it's good to see that they trained you well." Naruto sat under the shade of a tree, his sunglasses hiding his eyes from view. He saw Hinata face Ino, and using her clan taijutsu, took her opponent down easily. Hinata walked over to where Naruto was sitting, and sat down next to him. Sakura woke up in time to see it, and said, "Why are you sitting next to that freak? Sasuke-kun is so much better than him." Hinata scoffed, and said, "And yet he beat your ass into the dirt." "What does that say?" When the class was called back into the classroom, Naruto walked in, a few of the girls having hearts in their eyes, but he just turned away, and sat next to Hinata, who blushed at how close they were. Uruka then said, "Alright. Next up is the final portion of the exam. When I call your name, come to the next room. First, we have." Naruto basically tuned out the noise, watching as the genin either passed, and came out with a headband, or failed. And left sulking. Soon, he heard, "Naruto Uzumaki." He then got up, and strolled to the room, where Uruka and Mizuki waited. Uruka then said, "Okay Naruto, create 3 clones in order to pass." Naruto smirked, and asked, "Just to be clear, it can be any clone jutsu I know, correct?" Uruka raised an eyebrow, but said, "Yes, it can. Most clans in the village have an alternate clone jutsu, so they are accepted as well." Naruto grinned, and using a cross-shaped seal, said, "Shadow clone jutsu." 10 perfect Naruto copies appeared, and Mizuki, in irritation said, "You fail. That's not the jutsu on the test." Uruka smacked him with the clipboard, and said, "I just said he could use an alternate clone if he had one. So as far as I'm concerned, he passed. Congratulations Naruto, you graduated." Naruto took a headband that had a black cloth to it. He walked out in the room, the headband tied to his arm. He had a devil's grin, and he walked back to his seat, the grin never leaving. When the rest of the students finished their tests, Uruka and Mizuki walked back into the main room, and Uruka said, "Congratulations to all of you who passed. Know that by becoming genin, you have taken your first step in your shinobi careers, and it will only get harder from here. Come back in 2 days to receive your team assignments." Dismissed. Naruto quickly left the room, Hinata following, so as to avoid any bullshit from the Uchiha or his fangirls. They walked side by side, until a mob of villagers approached them, and one of them said, "Lady Hyuga, step away from that beast. He's a demon made flesh." He would have said more, but Naruto drew one of his guns, and shot the man square in the head. He then said, "Lights out. If the rest of you want the same, then please, stand still, but if not, then get the fuck out of our way." The mob dispersed, Hinata still staring at the dead body they carried with them. Naruto put his gun away, and said, "I'm sorry you had to see that. Let us continue on our way." Quote, Hinata giggled, and said, "It's okay, they were being rude, and rudeness can't be tolerated, now can it?" She winked at him, and he smirked, and said, "No, it can't." But he thought, she must know. Hiyashi must have told her, I wonder why. They soon reached the Hyuga home, thankfully without incident. The guards bowed in respect, and one of them said, "Thank you for bringing Hinata-sama home. We were worried." Naruto bowed, and said, "It was my pleasure. Now I have things of my own to attend to. Excuse me." Namikaze, Helsing Manor. Naruto walked into the front door, and was instantly tackled by Rip, Ceres, and Itachi, each of them wearing French-made outfits. Rip then said, "I see you passed master, so perhaps, we can celebrate." Naruto and the girls let out a perverted giggle, as Naruto slipped out from under them, and went into the kitchen to get some sake. He came back with 4 bottles, and 4 cups, and he said, "Let's drink to it." They each poured themselves a glass, and with a cry of, "Cheers," they quickly began downing their glasses, Itachi being a bold one, foregoing her cup and just drank straight from the bottle, and it quickly turned into a drinking contest. Naruto slammed his bottle on the table, and said, "Well now, I think it's time we take this party to our room, what do you say girls?" They giggled, and they said, at the same time, "Why of course master." Naruto made 2 clones, and none of the girls could tell if they got a clone or the real one, but they didn't care either way. They found their way to their individual rooms, either a clone or the real in tow. Similar things were happening with Itachi and Ceres, their lovers disappearing in a puff of smoke after they fell asleep. The real Naruto was out on the hunt. He heard the sirens in the village go off, showing an emergency happened. He heard from a few shinobi, can you believe it? Mizuki broke into the Hokage tower and stole the forbidden scroll. I know, I heard he was heading into the forest. Naruto was off. Forest clearing. Mizuki could not have been happier. He managed to grab the scroll Orochimaru asked for, and he wasn't found yet. He made a short stop, as something whizzed past his ear. He turned his head, and saw Naruto holding his silver handgun, the end of the barrel smoking, showing he fired it. Naruto looked down, his rage evident, and he said, I knew you were a fool, but to try this? You're fucking stupid. And what's worse, every second I'm here, I could be with my girls, so let's cut the bullshit, and have you come along quietly. Mizuki started to laugh, and said, you, a genin, beat me, a chunin. That's stupid of you to think. Naruto wagged his finger, like he was scolding a child. Mizuki threw a batch of kunai in anger, not noticing Naruto disappearing from sight, and the next, and last, thing he heard, was the click of a gun hammer, and a voice saying, don't say I didn't warn you. A gunshot rang out through the area, alerting the ninja, and they started running. What they found was Mizuki's body, his head blown off, the forbidden scroll intact, and a note saying, took you all long enough. All that was heard in the forest was a bone-chilling laughter. The end. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.